In 2010, we saw the release of the original Call of Duty Black Ops, and now, 14 years later, we have the newest Black Ops, Black Ops 6. But what exactly has changed over the last 14 years when it comes to attention to detail? One thing that's really cool about the Call of Duty games is that every so often we get a Call of Duty that lets us go back and revisit a location from a previous Call of Duty. And that's exactly what we get with Vorkuta, as the last time we were here in the original Black Ops campaign, we were trying to escape this Soviet labor camp, and now in Black Ops 6 we get to see this location with 14 years worth of graphical enhancements, and I always think that kind of stuff's cool. Moving on now to a comparison of some of the weapons between the two games, and beginning with the AK-47 of the original Black Ops, the model itself looks fine, I have no issues with it. I did notice that there's a cool little star on the back of the rifle, which is pretty neat, but what really dates this weapon, in my opinion, is the sound design, as firing the weapon sounds okay, but it's really the reload sound effects that make this weapon kind of sound dated. While obviously the AK of Black Ops 6 is going to have much higher detail due to the game being 14 years newer, but when it comes to the sound design, I really love this way these weapons sound in the newer Call of Duty games, as when you reload them, you can really hear the crunch of the reload in the magazine, and it's one of my favorite improvements over the weapons of the previous Call of Duty games. And moving on now to a comparison of the Commando rifle, and everything I said about the AK-47 applies to this as well, as obviously the Commando rifle's model in the original Black Ops is much less detailed than what we see with the Commando rifle of Black Ops 6, due to that game being 14 years newer. But with the original Black Ops, I do love that it has these straps wrapped around the rifle. I always thought that gave the weapon a lot of personality when it comes to its visuals. But just like the AK-47, it's the firing and reloading sound effects that really age this version of the weapon. And it's also worth mentioning when firing the weapons that the newer Call of Duty weapons have a lot more smoke effects, obviously, but it's really the sound effects that really win me over for these newer versions of the weapons, as firing the weapons have a lot of impact, and I really like the crunchy reload sounds. And moving on now to a comparison of the bullet blood decals between the two games, and when shooting enemies in Black Ops 6, you do get some very highly detailed blood decals. While in the original Black Ops, blood decals do show up when shooting enemies, though they're not that detailed and they kind of look like you're just shooting them with paintballs. But one thing that's a huge difference in this category is that the original Black Ops does have dismemberment, which is pretty intense, and the newer Black Ops 6 does not have any of this at all. And moving on now to a comparison of how melee works between the two games, and in the original Black Ops, your melee is restricted to just your knife, which provides instant kills in both campaign and multiplayer. While in Black Ops 6, you can obviously melee with the butt of your weapon, and if you hold melee, you switch to your knife, and you can do your extended takedown animations, but what's really cool is in the original Black Ops campaign, there's a segment where you can take an enemy soldier as a human shield, and in Black Ops 6, you can actually do this to other players in multiplayer, and it's just really cool how this has come full circle after 14 years. But when it comes to advanced movement, that's where you really start to see some differences, as in the original Black Ops, all you could do was sprint and dive, and speaking of diving, it was introduced in the original Black Ops. Now fast forward 14 years to Black Ops 6, where we have Omni movement, which not only allows us to dive, but to slide as well, and we can sprint in any direction and dive in any direction, so it's come a long way. Moving on to a comparison of the explosion effects, and beginning with a grenade in the original Black Ops, the grenade itself looks and sounds fine for a game that came out in 2010, and there's even a burn mark on the ground left where the grenade detonated. But moving on to Black Ops 6, you can really see the advancements made to the particle effects, as the explosion itself looks great with all of its smoke and debris, and even the ground looks much more realistically damaged. And of course this is even more emphasized with the C4 as well. But another thing that's really cool about Black Ops and Black Ops 6 is that they share some of the same kill streaks, so in this video I could actually show you the same kill streak as it's changed over the course of 14 years. So here's Napalm as it appears in the original Black Ops, and as you can see, it looks and sounds great, especially for a game that came out in 2010. And here's a Napalm Strike as it appears in Black Ops 6, and obviously it's going to look and sound much better. The game is 14 years newer, but one thing I did find interesting is that even after 14 years, the flames of the napalm aren't illuminating the darkness of the shadows of the houses on Nuketown, which I find kind of interesting. Which leads us to a comparison of the smoke grenades between the two games, which in the original Black Ops we have the Willy Pete with its really charming looking detonation effect. I've always loved the way this grenade looks when it goes off, though the smoke effects themselves don't look nearly as detailed as what we see in Black Ops 6 with its smoke grenade, as the moment that grenade goes off it instantly looks much more realistic and has much more detail. Moving on to another kill streak that's shared between Black Ops and Black Ops 6, the RCXD, which was introduced in the original Black Ops, is much easier to control and handle in the original Black Ops versus the RCXD we have in Black Ops 6, as it likes to slide around a lot more, though I do love in Black Ops 6 the RCXD is literally a toy remote control car, which is awesome. And on top of that, the Black Ops 6 RCXD can actually drag bodies around, which is hilarious. Moving on now to a comparison of the water effects between the two games, and in the original Black Ops, whenever you shoot the surface of water, I mean, it looks fine. If you look really close, you do see a small ripple effect, but honestly, it is what it is for a game that came out in 2010. This looks much more detailed in Black Ops 6, obviously, but what's really interesting is that whenever you throw a frag grenade into the water in the original Black Ops, it does in some ways look more detailed than what we see with the splash effects in Black Ops 6, which I always find that interesting when I find these kinds of things. But what's also pretty interesting is that in the original Black Ops, you can swim underwater in certain segments of the campaign. Though this isn't in multiplayer, it is in the multiplayer of Black Ops 6. Which leads us to a comparison of the glass physics, and in the original Black Ops, the glass physics, they look fantastic. I can't knock them at all, especially for a game that's 14 years old, but in Black Ops 6, they've stepped up their glass physics more than they have in any other previous Call of Duty game, as wherever the bullet hits the glass, it actually knocks a hole out of the glass where the bullet impacted, which looks great. There's little cracks around the holes as well, but instead of the glass just shattering outright, you're actually knocking holes out of the glass. It looks fantastic, and it's the best glass physics we've seen in any Call of Duty. And you guys know we gotta shoot some cars between the two games, and in the original Black Ops, whenever you shoot a windshield, it goes into a pretty detailed looking cracked state, but whenever the windshield breaks out entirely, it doesn't look nearly as detailed as whenever you're, say, shooting windows out of houses in the game. And interestingly, whenever you shoot the tires, you can hear the air leaving the tire whenever you shoot it, though the suspension on the vehicle doesn't change at all in the original Black Ops. While in Black Ops 6, obviously this does look better, though it doesn't look as good as whenever you're shooting the windows of a house in Black Ops 6. You're not knocking the cool holes out of the glass where the bullet is impacting. It looks the same every time you break a window in the car, though it is worth mentioning whenever you shoot a tire in a car in Black Ops 6, you do see the air leave the tire and the suspension change on the vehicle, which is pretty cool. And you guys know I love comparing snow and ice effects in these videos, so in the original Black Ops, if you're in a snowy map, you can actually see icicles hanging on the roof of buildings, and if you shoot them, you can actually knock the icicles off, which is a pretty sweet detail. And interestingly, 14 years later in Black Ops 6, you actually lose this detail, as whenever you shoot the icicles in Black Ops 6, the icicles don't react at all. And with my final comparison in this video, I wanted to see if I could physically burn the mannequins on Nuketown in the original Black Ops. I tried using napalm since we don't have Molotov cocktails, and it didn't work. But I am happy to say in Black Ops 6, 14 years later, you can actually burn the mannequins on Nuketown with a Molotov cocktail or whatever, and they actually charge them black, which is pretty cool. Well guys, you made it to the end. Thank you for watching this direct comparison of the original Call of Duty Black Ops versus Call of Duty Black Ops 6. It's been a lot of fun making this video, just seeing just exactly how much has changed over the last 14 years. Some things, I mean a lot of things graphically and audio-wise are for the better, but there's some small details that the original Black Ops in 2010 did better than Call of Duty Black Ops 6, a game that came out in 2024, and to me, I mean, that's why I make these videos, just because I find that kind of stuff interesting, and I hope you guys do too. But guys, that's all I have for this video. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of these comparisons. What did I leave out? What do you want to see on my next direct comparison? I love reading those comments. But guys, that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.